Hello friends and welcome to the RaoMoon Oracle. I'm Rao and today we are doing a Oracle review. I'm calling it the Moonology double feature. So we've got two of the Moonology decks here. I say two as if there's more than just the two, but we've got the two Moonology decks here. So first one, the Moonology Oracle cards, and then the Moonology Manifestation Oracle cards. This is a set of decks by Yasmin Boland. Beautiful cards. You've probably seen them around a lot. They tend to be used in readings pretty frequently. The artwork is gorgeous in both of the decks. I found them on Amazon if you're interested in purchasing them. But they're very interesting cards, and I wanted to take a look at them today because despite their appearances and the overarching themes, they do have a lot of differences amongst them for kind of the purposes that you'd use them for and the goals of using them. So I wanted to look at the artwork a little bit here, the use of both decks of cards, and I'll show you some of the different cards that they have and some of the colors and designs. So we'll start with the original one. The original one is the Moonology Oracle cards, and this one has the the cover, the art is just gorgeous on the boxes and in the cards themselves. This one focuses on in terms of the zodiac, so both work through the moon signs, through each of the zodiac signs in the decks. And this one focuses on just the full moon and the new moon, and then has other elements of the moon, where it's different phases. So you'll see a new moon, full moon, super moon, other phases of the moon, and certain types of moons, like the cardinal moon are quadruplicities, cardinal, fixed, and mutable. So these cards, they have a little bit more simple back than the second deck. So it has just the different phases of the moon working through here. And these cards, let me pull the ones I had here. So you'll see these kinds of ones where it'll have the sign. So it'll have the full moon and the new moon in the sign. So this one's our Virgo one here. So we see the green coloring, we see the sign kind of depicted with the Virgin in the case for the Virgo, right? And then here's our Cancer. I pulled my signs. I pulled my sun side and my moon side for these ones. But yeah, you see the crab, obviously, right, for Cancer. So we get certain colorings in there because it works very heavily with all the different elements that you'll see in the moon. So we got the zodiac signs, you've got the 4 elements in there. It's different phases. The moon has a lot of energy that it works with, and that's kind of the points that Yasmin Boland came up with for working with the moon and these oracle cards specifically. So each of them is going to have a different color. And then you'll get these more individual cards like this. This is the waning moon. So that's when the moon is getting smaller. So then here's just a new moon, right? And then here's ones for the quadruplicity. So this is the mutable moon. I've actually used the 3 quadruplicity cards to help with a pick a group reading that I've done on my channel here, because they're just very gorgeous cards. So you get the different phases here. So this one's the gibbous moon. Beautiful, beautiful coloring. Let's see. This one's nice. This one's really, really nice. Look at this. Full moon eclipse. Oh, they're like mini paintings. Some of them are like mini paintings. The ones that are not part of the zodiacs anyway, they have a little bit more free form art to them, which I really like. And then you got a couple different little different pieces. This one's the North Node. So you got more of that zodiac elements coming through in this deck specifically. Void of Course Moon, that's a good one. So the point for these decks is to really work very heavily with the moon energy. So in terms of zodiac, right, our sun, the sun moves through each sign roughly about every month, right? So it gives bigger energy for your year for just working through, right? So it's an energy of the whole month versus the moon tends to stay only in the sign for about 3 days. So it's a little bit more day-to-day, working kind of one-on-one. So there's a lot more opportunity when working with moon energy and as it's moving through the signs to work through a lot and do different things depending on what sign the moon is in on a given day, right? So when the moon is in Cancer, for example, you're maybe going to be a little bit more introverted, or you want to be more introverted. You're going to hang out with your family potentially. If you have a kid, you're going to hang out with your kids. That kind of energy versus maybe Aries, you're going to go out and do something you haven't done before. You're going to be more extroverted. Working with the moon's energies is very different because it can happen on a more small day-to-day basis versus working within the energy of the sun and what's happening on a monthly basis, right? So a little bit different there, but that's kind of the point of the decks that Yasmin wanted to do. For this deck specifically, it has on like its little descriptions here, it has attuned to the moon, additional meanings for this card, and then it gives you like a little teaching. And I think that helps break it down because there's so many different interpretations and energies you can work with, even just within the cards themselves. And there's, I think, it's a 44 card deck. So a lot of energy there, a lot of things, different ways it can apply to your life. And I think that's very cool when you're working with this deck specifically. Now, where we get into overlap for these cards is the second deck, the second series, the Moonology Manifestation cards, this one with Yasmin, it breaks down and focuses more specifically on the signs and the movement through the signs. So where we get overlap is between the new moon and the full moon for both decks. So you'll see a little bit of overlap there in terms of like what the card is called, but there's not a lot of overlap for it. Like it dives into different meanings for those cards. So for example, we have the new moon in Virgo in both of these decks, right? So the new moon in Virgo in the original Moonology deck, the Moonology Oracle card says the time to give rather than take, and that's new moon or Virgo. And the new one, because the focus is on manifestation and specifically working with the signs, this one says trust all will be well. So the Moonology Manifestation cards, I think this is probably one of the best decks I've seen in terms of timing and to really work with the energy, because it does have that focus of manifestation and working with the deck, working with the moon, to really work and see what you're trying to do in your life. So when you're working with this deck specifically in the descriptions that has in it, it has a manifesting balance, manifesting mindset, a manifesting ritual for releasing, an affirmation, and when to manifest the magic. So it gives you like a good amount of breakdown. And the manifesting is whatever manifesting ritual is very specific to that given card. So the one I was reading, I think, was for an Aries one, but manifesting ritual to unleash your wilder side is full moon in Leo. Manifesting ritual for cleansing is full moon in Taurus. Let's see. And that one specifically for full moons. As you get further in, if you're doing last quarter moons, it's going to be a little bit different. It has specific manifesting magic for last quarter moons. For new moons, it has manifesting tips. And then for first quarter, it's tuning in. So a little bit different as you're working with each phase of the moon, right? Let's see. So our full moon in Virgo, the original card says you are good enough. And then the new one, the manifestation card, says take inspired action. So there's definitely overlap for that feeling and that energy, but it's not, the purpose of the cards is different. I like the Moonology Manifestation cards in terms of like more hardcore applicable advice and ways to work with energy, versus the original Moonology is a little bit more that Oracle kind of guide, energy instead. Like, okay, here's the guidance for the Moonology, regular Moonology cards, and then the manifestation cards is like, here's how you move forward, here's your action, and by comparison. Full moon in Cancer here. Original one says a personal issue reaches resolution. The new one, the manifestation is let your fears dissolve. So in terms of artwork, the artwork in the Moonology Manifestation cards is, I love it. I actually like it a lot more. In terms of like the non-zodiac cards in the original Moonology, like this, like the picture ones like this for the different elements of the moon, those I think take the cake in terms of that. But however, the cards just as a whole in terms of artwork for the Moonology Manifestation are just top notch. Like they have a very specific feeling to them, a very specific vibe, and they all look like little pieces of artwork on their own. So I think that's cool. Backs of these ones, I like the back of this one a lot more, just in terms of color. The simplicity of the original deck is really, really nice. In terms of color for this one is more my speed here. So, but the artist who did do these cards is different between each deck. So Yasmin created both decks in terms of the descriptions and the meanings for the cards, but the artwork, but in the original Moonology Oracle cards is by RaoMoon, and then the one in the Manifestation Moonology cards is by Lori Minna. So a little bit different there, and that's why they do have that kind of different vibe. There is overlap again, but they just do have different feelings and different purposes for what you'd use them for. So gorgeous cards overall. I'm just like, I have them all spread out in front of me here. All the boxes open and the booklets out and a bunch of cards turned over. And it's just, there's a lot of fun, like beautiful energy here. You definitely feel the energy from these cards for that like feminine moon quality of energy, that kind of divine feminine coming through. But I think in terms of use, I would use probably the Oracle, original Moonology Oracle cards. Again, for that, like, that just guidance. I think they add a little bit more to a reading if I'm doing like a tarot reading, and kind of use those as a clarification or just like an overarching theme. I think that's a little bit more prevalence and relevance for in terms of the original Moonology cards. The Moonology Manifestation cards, I think, again, are very good for like timing. They're broken down pretty solidly into those 4 quarters of the 4 stages of the moon. So you got that new moon, that's first quarter moon, the full moon, and then the last quarter moon. So timing wise, there's 4 quarters, 4 sets for each of the moon cards for each zodiac sign, coming to a total of 48. So if I were to actually try and get like a timing for a reading for somebody or for myself, where it's like, when is this going to happen, or how can what's stage or when can I get this to happen, and asking that of the Moonology Manifestation cards, it's going to come out, I think, a lot more. It'll come out with very specific time frame, right? Where it's like, okay, when is the next full moon in Scorpio? So let me look at that up, and it's like, okay, this is roughly this time to this time, right? So that'll give me an idea for potentially when, depending on the energy and free will, of course, right? For when I can expect that thing to come through, or around the time I can expect that to happen. Because it's not going to be intuitively a certain time of year. Full moon in Scorpio is not always going to be during Scorpio season, as in November, right? Where was it? Yeah, it's November. It's not going to always be around November where it's like, okay, that's when Scorpio season is in the terms of solarly, like the sun is moving into the sign of Scorpio during that time of year. A full moon in Scorpio is not going to happen that same time of year. It can happen in March. It can happen in January. It can happen any time of year, because again, the moon is constantly cycling through every 3 days through into a new sign. And specifically when that phase of the moon is happening in that sign is going to be different than you think. So the sun might be, the moon might be in Scorpio in middle right now. So we're January 13th. The moon might be in Scorpio right now. I don't think it is, but it might be in Scorpio right now, but it's only going to be in Scorpio for another day, right? And it's in the full moon specifically. So if you're trying to get like that first quarter moon of Scorpio, that might not happen for another 3, 4, or 5 months. Who knows? So it really forces you to work with the moon, look at the signs, look when it's moving through, and really attune to that energy specifically. So maybe have to do some research for, it's like, okay, when is the next new moon in Leo happening? And well, let's take a peek real quick. Let's see. So the next new moon in Leo, for example, is on July 28th of this year. So pretty far off, not when you would necessarily think. The next full moon that we have is, let's see. Next full moon is pretty quick here on January 17th. I don't know when I'm uploading this video. It might be that day, potentially, for all I know. But that's a full moon in Cancer. And Cancer, in terms of sun sign Cancer, is in July. So that's a completely separate time of year and separate energy, right? So you have that overarching energy of us being in whatever season in terms of the month and solarly, and then breaking it down to the moon sign and what's the moon is currently in, and then the phase of the moon itself, right? Our full moon is coming into that big completion energy. New moon's when you want to like start new projects. And that first quarter is like growing that project, working through, putting in all that hard work. And that's like last quarter moon after the full moon is kind of that like rest, dwindling down period, right? So there's a constant like certain type of energy depending on the phase of the moon, colored by the zodiac sign it's in, colored by the sun sign zodiac it's in. So that's when astrology like really breaks down and gets into a lot of really good details, and I think that's fun. But the Moonology cards, they're cool. They're really, really cool. Gorgeous artwork. They are really well thought out. And I think that's a really important factor in terms of Oracle cards and Oracle decks for different ones I've used. You can really tell when an Oracle deck is thought through very precisely and every card is purposely done versus just like slapping on a theme into a specific like set of cards, right? There's this certain feeling and energy that you get when a deck is really, really well thought out. And both of these ones do feel that way to me. So love this deck a lot. Yasmin is brilliant. I hope they come out with more decks in the long run. I'd like to see a lot more from this person particularly because I think they do really, really good work. So that is all I have for us today. I highly recommend the Moonology cards, both sets. I have got both decks, and I took a while to get the Moonology manifestation cards because I thought, like a lot of other people, where it's like, oh, they seem like they're a little repeat-ish of the first deck. They're not. I'm really glad I ended up getting them as well because they have their uses and they're very good for particular situations, and that's what we want for Oracle cards and Oracle decks, especially when you have a lot like I do. You can justify it a little bit more if you're like, nope, this is for this purpose, this one's for this purpose, and this one's for that purpose. So that's why I have 20 decks. Well, I don't know how many decks I have. I'll have to count my Oracle and Tarot decks and see how many I have total now. But that's all I got for us today, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you got a little bit of information out of them. Super fun cards. And I will see you in the next video. Please like and comment and subscribe down below. Have a good rest of your day. Bye.